Department Pool. I'm discussing conflict management in the workplace. In our personal lives, the potential for conflict seems like it is infinite. There are conflicts between siblings, friends, spouses, and even parents to child. Conflict management applies to all areas of our lives, even in the workplace. Majority of people that are old enough to hold down jobs, school, or work know for certain that we spend at least 1/3 of our lives in a workplace environment. It is very important to feel comfortable in your workplace setting so you can maintain expected performance of the jobs expected. The potential for disagreements is ever present. Conflict occurs when there may be disagreements over motivations, ideas, desires, or values. It is going to happen whenever you have people with difficult situations that are different. This makes conflict management critical, whether avoiding arguments, disputes, lasting conflict, or ultimately litigation. Conflict can be avoided in steps if they are taken early. Problems and dilemmas will pile up over time and become great in number. Tools of dispute. You always want to stay calm when presented with a situation. As Thomas Jefferson said, nothing gives one so much advantage over another as to remain always cool and unruffled under all circumstances. The thing that leads to conflict is escalation. What starts people escalating is their anger. Most of us stop listening to understand as we get angry. Instead, we start listening in order to argue back. When conflict inevitably happens, it is helpful to stop and think. Chances are it is going to be resolved eventually. You always want to listen to understand. Any listening most of the time is only being done to formulate an argument back to prove your point. When most of us get into a dispute, the first thing we do is stop listening. In the mediations that I do, in my interview, as you'll later see, I often learn what people's underlying interests are by letting them go on telling me their perspective of the issue until they give the one thing that is standing in the way of them resolving it. Anger is a secondary emotion that is usually triggered as a defense mechanism to cover up hurt or fear. Next, you want to be positive. Accentuate the positive. It is important to find some commonalities or create them between you and the person on the other end. It is very helpful and empathetic to say, I know what you're going through. I've had a similar situation just recently. This serves to normalize the situation. It tells someone that they are not the only one who goes through situations and their reactions are normal. You want to get to the source of the problem. You want to state your case tactfully. The key is to help understand your perspective on things without making them defensive. Leave a little benefit of the doubt rather than insisting someone arrived on schedule. If someone's late, there's always an underlying situation or effect. Moving on to tools of dispute. You want to avoid blame. Attack the problem, not the person. Your point will be heard more clearly if you can depersonalize your comments and point only at the issue. Avoid the blame game. Assign blame is only helpful in one instance in problem solving. If you assign it to yourself. Generally speaking, figuring out whose fault something is does not do any good if the goal is to fix a problem. It is a diversion and sometimes a costly one. Focus on what you and the others can do to solve a problem and make it better, and it will be behind you before you know it. Focus on the future, not the past. In the same tense, we have a purchase order, the contract, the agreement, the deal as it's understood by all involved. When there is a problem that has an angry patient or customer in a business, the solution is all that anyone is interested in. Next, you want to ask the right questions. Ask the right kind of questions. Ask the whys, ask the whats. These questions are designed to get just what you want from someone rather than to permit to tell them that you know about something. If you want someone to answer your questions with real information than just arguing, be patient. Let them speak. You want to pick your battles. These are your choices. It is also important when asking questions to remember to pick your situations. Human nature makes us want to be right, even to the point of being defensive or arguing our points that do not matter in the big picture. If an issue is a 5 to you and a 9 to someone else, it is best to give that point up and use the same scale when an item is important to you. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a win-win situation unless everybody agrees to disagree. Next, you want to be creative. Brainstorm. Give ideas, get ideas. Remember that everything is negotiable. Feel free to think outside the box. After an interview with a pediatric HR manager in a busy pediatric clinic, I found her point of view was to be very creative in utilizing skills. She's always non-judgmental and very open-minded. She even has an open door policy. When dealing with patients and their parents in this case, the stress level is extremely elevated with different situations. For example, being short-staffed, one medical assistant or one front desk position can increase stress all around. The patients and their parents feel this stress. There are more personality flare-ups, and this even falls over, like we said, over onto the patient side. So it is important to predict the inevitable that may happen. An employee may miss work, have another employee on standby. Always look ahead. Communication should be stressed in any clinic between patients, between employees, and between managers. Lack of communication or not being an active listener will have an influence on their moods and deviate their trust from you. It is important to be firm in your role, according to the HR manager, and not be swayed due to in-house politics and display empathy with all decision making. Lack of communication and not being an active listener, again, stresses everyone. This kind of negotiation is a hard process, she says. It requires more than two people to remain in a position to rebuild trust and be creative. At the end of the day, their only objective is a happy patient leaving the office. Conflict management and resolution. Perception is different for all individuals. So don't try to correct this and don't point out who is right or wrong. Instead, try the conflict resolution strategies. Avoid escalation. Remove tension. Look deep. There's always an underlying problem. Again, you should recognize that all of us have biased fairness perceptions. You want to hire a mediator in extreme cases, but avoid egocentrism. Do not make threats. Try to de-escalate any situation And like we said, identify the deeper issues, the underlying issues. And again, exercise the open door policy. We want to make peace in a workplace. This is the conclusion of my PowerPoint.